Hey, I'm Andy Cooper from Ugly Duckling, and right now you're watching Urban Media. My name's Andy Cooper. I'm 1/3 of the group Ugly Duckling, and we're from Long Beach, California. And we've been a group since the mid-90s and making a living doing this for about 11 or 12 years. It started for me in the early 80s. I was born in 1975, and hip-hop started coming in to fashion, at least on the West Coast in Long Beach, California, where we're from, in the early 80s, late 70s, especially through breakdancing culture. So on the playgrounds, you know, black, white, Latin kids, everybody would be out there trying their best to pop lock or breakdance, and the soundtrack would be this odd kind of music with someone just talking over the top of it. And I heard those records like Planet Rock or even like Atomic Dog and P-Funk stuff. And it just sort of became the soundtrack of youth. And as I got older, I played basketball. I'm a pretty tall guy, and I was always in Long Beach schools that I played for, the only or one of two white guys on the team. So I was always around mostly black kids. And so just the vocabulary and the culture and the style of hip-hop kind of got inside of me. And I met Dizzy and Einstein in the early 90s, and we started developing a band, and we've been working for a long time now. Well, I love music. I grew up in a musical family, so I continue doing it because it's one of the few things in life that I feel comfortable doing. And I really enjoy entertaining people, and it's fun to be the person on the stage that makes people happy or makes people smile. And it's really cool to conceptualize and develop music and then release it or put it out there and have it resonate with people. And there's nothing like it when you think of an idea, you develop a musical sound, and you create a song, and then you put it out there, and then you perform it for people, and then they know the song already or they react to it. It's a really satisfying experience to watch the whole thing go full cycle. And I'm sure that's whether it's hip-hop or classical music or rock or country or anything. So that's one of the driving forces for me. Well, some of the most memorable times and the most difficult times are the same. The first couple years of touring, where we went to the UK for 2 months, in UK and Europe, and we toured with the Jungle Brothers, which was unbelievable because I was a big Jungle Brothers fan. So that was something that was just amazing to me, especially the first couple weeks of it, because it was just surreal all the time, being with heroes every night and having chit-chats about hip-hop. Also, the first time touring around the US, we toured with the Hieroglyphics, and that was also similar. But I think the most amazing moment, and it'll sound silly, but we produced a 12-inch record called Fresh Mode. It was the first thing we ever really put out there. We had made some cassette tapes and different things we'd sell locally, but we made this 12-inch, and we got a few independent distributors to ship it out to who knows where. And we had a relationship with Cut Chemist from Jurassic 5, and maybe 1998 they went to the UK and they performed in London, so we were very happy for them that they got to go do that. And when they got back, Lucas called my house and he left a message on my answer machine and said, a bunch of DJs over in the UK really love your guys' record. They were playing it every night. You guys are getting some reaction over here. And he left the message on my answer machine, and I was working at a bookstore at the time, and I remember calling my answering machine and punching in the code and listening to that message and just almost like literally shaking happy that the idea that our music had gone across the Atlantic, or that it was being played by DJs in some, what seemed at the time, exotic place. And that was just a thrilling moment, even though in retrospect it's kind of a small time thing, but at the time it was just beyond words I could describe. Well, future plans for Ugly Duckling, we just made a bunch of new music, and we'd like to put it out there and perform it for people. We don't really have too much wherewithal beyond that. Our whole process and cycle of being a band is make a bunch of songs, put together some routines, and perform them for people, and try and keep our heads above water and try and stay out on the road or figuring out a way to make a living. And we've been able to do that for, like I said, a little bit more than a decade now, and try and do it a little bit longer. Try and stay 2 steps ahead of the law, as they say. This tour, it was only about a week or so long, but we got to do a couple shows with Del, the funky Homo sapien, and that was cool because, as I mentioned earlier, our first U.S. tour was with the Hieroglyphics and Del, and so it was real fun to perform with him again. We'd done a few different things, so we got to see him, and it was really strange. One night, Del was really animated after the show, and he was talking to a bunch of people, and on that first tour, we spent, I think, a couple months together, so we got to know each other to some extent, but, you know, Del's a very distant and extraterrestrial guy, but he was talking to somebody very passionately about something, I don't know what, and all of a sudden, he turned to me and went, "Andy, I'm really glad you're rapping." And then he mentioned something that I discussed with him 10 years ago in a very personal conversation about some conflicts I had about being in the group and all that stuff. And he's like, "I'm really glad all that panned out." So I was like, wow, I didn't even think he even knew who I was. So that was an interesting bit. And then the other shows are good too. And you know what? Anytime there's people in the audience, we appreciate it. It's a true privilege to get to entertain people and to work on any level. So there's never a moment where we feel entitled to an audience. So anytime there's people in the place, it's pretty exciting. I'm not much for shout outs, but I will give a shout out to Langston Hughes, my man Mark Twain, and C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite authors. Booyaka!